Chairman of Ways and Means and the Alston-Brighton District City Councilor. Today is Tuesday, June 6th. I'd like to remind folks that this is a public hearing and is being broadcast live and recorded on RCN Channel 82, Comcast Channel 8, and Verizon 1964. At the conclusion of the presentation by the administration and questions from my colleagues, we will take public testimony. There is a sign-in sheet to my left by the door. We ask that you state your name, address, and any affiliation. I would also want to read the docket into the record. Docket 0750, message and order approving a supplemental appropriation of $1,191,122 for various departments to cover the FY17 cost items contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the City of Boston and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, Council 93, and Locals, AFSCME. The terms of the contracts are July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, and July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020. The major provisions of the contract include base wage increase of 2% effective the first pay period of October of each fiscal year. The agreement also contains other benefits, including a new clothing allowance starting in 2017 and steps beginning in October 2018. I am also joined by my good friend and colleague from Hyde Park, Councilor Tim McCarthy. And with that, let me hand it over to our CFO and budget folks. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Sweeney. I'm the Chief of Administration and Finance for the city. And if it's all right with you, I'll just walk you through quickly some general baseline information about the agreement before you. As you know, AFSCME represents about 1,130 members throughout various city departments with particularly high concentrations in public works, transportation, parks, and ISD. They represent a very diverse membership and is the city's fourth largest union, representing almost 7% of all city employees. The agreement reached between the city and AFSCME is technically two agreements, one running from July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, and another, a 3-year agreement running from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020 for a total of 4 years, with an estimated additional incremental costs of $15.7 million over 4 years. The agreement also involved modifications to several language items sought by both the city and the union, including changes to on-call provisions in various departments, and the elimination of language providing for provisions of off-hours services, streamlining of that process in several places. The city was also able to get agreement on sick leave redemption cap of $15,000 upon retirement. The city and the union agreed to extend the city's exempt paid parental leave policy to members of the union as part of this agreement. We also received clarification to the so-called 20-year rule, clarifying that that will only apply to employees in a promotional situation and not to lateral transfers. And employees will be moving to electronic pay stubs, a mandatory electronic pay stubs as a result of the agreement. As was, I think, noted in the transmittal, the basic general wage increase is an increase of 2% in each of the 4 years in the first pay period of each year. Additionally, in the first pay period of October 2018, a new step 10 will be created for AFSCME members, valued at 1% above the previous 9th step on the salary scale. And then exactly 1 year later, first period, October 2019, a new step 11 will become effective, also valued at 1% 5% above the previous 10th step in this instance. There's a streamlining of existing boot and uniform allowances and reimbursements, which were varied throughout different job titles and departments in the previous agreement. Those are all eliminated, and a new $250 clothing and boot allowance will be established for all AFSCME employees. Additionally, the city's contribution to the training and career fund that is already in existence has been increased as a result of this, as well as the city's contribution to the AFSCME Housing Trust, which provides housing and rental and emergency assistance to AFSCME members living in the city. Consistent with other city bargaining agreements, the current MBTA pass reimbursement benefit will also be expanded to all AFSCME members, and a monthly contribution toward an AFSCME prepaid legal services fund has been agreed to aid employees needing legal advice and counsel.
Great. Thanks. We've just been joined by a counselor at large, Anise Sabi George. Let me see. My first question would be the changes to the training and career fund. What's the purpose, and what can you kind of detail some of the changes?
Sure. So the change from the city's perspective is an increase in the amount of the contribution. I believe we currently contribute $75,000 per year to this fund, and by the end of the contract, we will be phased in over. By FY19, we'll be contributing $125,000 per year. I believe it'll be $100,000 FY18, and then $125,000 by FY9.
Mm-hmm. Is that like a match of some kind?
It's where members seek funding for furthering their careers in terms of credits, education.
It's like CEUs or whatever,
yeah.
Continuing education stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great that we have that housing trust, especially now more than ever probably. But could you detail some of the information that how they avail themselves of the housing trust, and some of the, parameters, maybe some of the benefits, I guess.
Right. So we're not intimately involved in that, but essentially what...
Is it run by the union itself?
Well, I believe there's an appointee of the mayor and an appointee of the union. There are written guidelines, I think, that are available online for those seeking additional information. But in a general sense, I think there are three basic programs. One is a home buyer's assistance aimed at lower earning employees for assistance with, closing costs, reducing mortgage rates, things like that. There's also there's a rental assistance provision as well for renters. And then I believe there's an emergency assistance provision as well. They have documented policies and procedures that require votes, I believe, for the disbursement of funds. And in this contract, the city's contribution is increasing from 5 cents per employee to 10 cents per employee. Right. So a doubling of the contribution to that fund.
Right. And happy to hear that we're expanding or giving them the ability to take the paid parental leave. We need to keep that momentum going with other unions. That's a great step for those folks. Crazy, though, that you had to actually negotiate having electronic pay stubs. Sorry. It's like, yeah, we should be doing that. Anyway, Councilor O'Malley will be very pleased. He and I actually sponsored a resolution that we should be moving more people to the electronic version. But anyway, let me recognize Councilor Tim McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Dave.
Thank
and
you.
Everybody. Dave's a new dad, by the way, so everybody.
Oh, that's right.
Everybody knows.
Congratulations
on that.
Thank you.
You'll be busy, trust me. Mark really asked some of the questions that I wanted to. I'm just once again happy that we've have this collective bargaining agreement at the table, and we're not going through all the nonsense that we did in the past. And I'm glad that the AFSCME group worked very, very hard with you guys, and I know that there's a lot going into it. My only question would be the the new steps that are created, 10 and then step 11. Are those 3% raises then? So is it 1% on the 2% or just 1% on the?
So I guess the 2%, the 2% sort of goes into effect first independently, and then the new scale is 1% above the scale in place at that time. So
Okay.
for an employee who reaches the 10th steps, so to speak, they would experience the general wage increase and then the new step also. Yeah. And I
and
think
that-
for this unit, it's about 2/3 of their members, I believe, are top step. So it impacts a significant.
Yeah, I could see that as a former SENA member. Once you get to your top step, even though your job description may change and you take on more and more duties, when you're at the top step, that's it, where you're at. So I'm glad that they added that. So I really have no further questions. The summary was excellent as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Sabi, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for being here. Could you just talk a little bit about the 20-year rule? So I just love an explanation of it. Thank you.
Sure. In the general sense, it's been inconsistently applied, so we wanted some clarification for that. For 20-year employees or 20-year plus employees, some departments may have been interpreting it that if a 20-year employee moved to a different position, they automatically move to the top step of that position. So there could have been a significant salary increase. The clarification of the 20-year rule, which has been in existence for decades before any of us, I think, in here were in this building, is to clarify that a 20-year employee receiving a promotion will go into the top step upon a move. It's not a lateral move, and it's not just an automatic, you're at your 20 years, you're going to your top step. So it was just a clarification of the practice of how the city intended it to be.
And so the intention is to go to the top step with that.
If you are promoted, if you're promoted to a new
promotion.
position,
Great.
yes.
Great. That is actually my only question. I think this
Okay,
cheat sheet's
great.
pretty good.
Thank you. And just to clarify, this is a supplemental appropriation rather than a collective bargaining. Where are the funds coming from, I guess? Okay. And
Counselor, sorry,
Yeah.
just obviously we're in the middle of FY18 deliberations with this body as well. We would probably anticipate making some adjustments in the event that a resubmitted budget is needed to allocate the funds to the appropriate departments as well.
Gotcha. And then finally, could you get me the collective bargaining reserve? I think it's just for 17 now?
Yeah, so the collective bargaining reserve for 17 is 13.3 million.
That's the balance now
That's the balance.
after.
It's
we're
not-
not
it's
taking
not
anything,
changing.
right?
It's not
right,
changing.
13. Okay, great. That concludes today's hearing. Is there anybody wishing to do public testimony? Sam Tyler, come on down.
Thank you.
I did sign up, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure you did.
All right, for the record, my name is Sam Tyler, the president of the Boston Municipal Research Bureau. And first, I want to congratulate the administration on finally negotiating this AFSCME contract. I think there's about 38 contracts that have expired on June 30th, 2016. So this is good that one of the larger unions has settled the contract, which follows the Patrolmen's Association, which also negotiated a contract, and both agreed to the 2% each year over 4 years. So that would seem to be the standard approach if two major unions have accepted that, although, as we found with the last round of negotiations, there may be some unions in the public safety, well, I guess it would have to be police because firefighters are their contract is not expired, had sort of thinking they could do a little better and went to binding arbitration. So hopefully that's not a case this year. But it is positive in terms of two major unions agreeing to the base agreement, which is the 2% for each year, which clearly I think is reasonable. The reason for my being here, I think, is to raise some concern about what I would call compensation creep. The 2% for the 4 years represents about 70% of the total cost of the $15.7 million. So there's another 30% built into this contract. And we've heard, from the summary, part of what that is. I mean, it's the 1% step increase in 2018 and the 1% step increase in 2019. I guess with the patrolman's contract, there are similar increases beyond just the straight 2%. So this is also perhaps a pattern. I think that the sick leave redemption, I guess it's a positive in terms of capping it at 15,000, but if I'm reading the past memorandum of agreements correctly, it's also increasing it to 30% of accumulated days, up from 25%. So I'm not sure what the 15,000, the full benefit of 15,000. The prepaid group legal service, I think, is new, and it sort of makes me think of the Boston Teachers Union Health and Welfare Fund, which is also an agreement that provides for benefits beyond what the city's standard benefit is in terms of legal, optical, psychiatric, other services, and whether this is, the beginning of seeing that on the civilian side, other than the teachers. I mean, the Health and Welfare Fund is now up to about $10 million a year. So gradually, these are costs that can continue to increase. The specialty differentials that are now going to be added to 17 titles, I mean, that's also additional funding. Not that it's necessarily a large amount, but, that's just the big, will that continue? So that's, I think, just the general concern about other features of the contract that add to, in this case, 30% of the total cost. And, we already are seeing, the personnel spending has increased, and to a point that it's good that the city has such a reliance on the property tax that with no growth growing as much as it is, that can afford it. But I think there just needs to be some concern about, the extent to which these additional factors add to the compensation creep and what that means overall citywide. And since that's really in both of these two major contracts, that's the reason for raising that concern, but not to the extent of suggesting in any way that this is a contract that should not be approved.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. And again, I want to thank the administration and the budget team for bringing forward this contract, which I believe is the first civilian contract negotiated, as Sam mentioned, in addition to the BPPA. And I applaud a lot of the consistencies implemented when it comes to the allowances, the uniform allowances, and the cap on the sick leave, redemption, and other benefits and conditions that are made consistent with this contract. So I will be reporting this out favorably tomorrow. And with no further testimony or anybody, this hearing stand adjourned.